Yeah, now we're good to go.
Sorted, mate. Sorted. So we're live with sound as well, eh? Spoiler
Live
this morning.
with
Picture
sound.
and sound, mate. Picture and sound this morning.
That's it, man.
All
Picture
over it.
and
Cool.
sound coming through
Cool.
the
Nice
airwaves.
one. Thank you very much, buddy. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this back. Hope we're all well. Hope we're all keeping okay. Thank you for jumping on with us this morning, buddy. How we doing, man? How we doing?
Yeah, not too bad, man. It's a nice day today, so I'm looking out my window and I'm seeing like nice bit of sunshine. Might have a little bit like tiny little walk on my lunch break, and
That's it.
yeah, man.
Nice to see, isn't it? It is nice to see compared to it's absolutely lashed down here all weekend. It's been absolutely minging. So yeah, it is nice to see a little bit of brightness first thing on the morning. It
Makes a change.
starts the day off right, doesn't it?
Definitely does, bro.
Definitely cool. Right, guys. So I don't know what was going on last week with the chat, but I've got chat capabilities back again this week. So I'll be keeping an eye on that sort of as we're working our way through. And of course, like I sort of mentioned last week, we're on our final week this week. So we're just sort of pulling everything together, wrapping everything up, and you know what they say, crossing some T's and dotting some I's and all of that sort of stuff as well.
That's
you know,
it,
so yeah, we're gonna have a little bit of a recap on last week, and then we're just gonna have a little bit of I guess sort of like a broad recap on sort of a lot of the different stuff that we've covered. Point out some of the stuff that we have covered, and then you can maybe, if you do want to look into that in a little bit more depth than we go into today, you can always just go back and check that video out again. You know, they're all going to be available once this session's wrapped. We'll work on getting them all into just one playlist on the YouTube channel. So, like I say, they're all just going to be in one easy place for you to find, and you can go back and revisit any of the sessions that we've done over the last 12 weeks. Okay, cool. So, I'll just keep an eye on the chat, see if anybody's diving in. I know Gary's normally in quite quick on the morning, isn't he?
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
cool. So, if we can just go first slide then, please, bud. So just a little bit of a recap on last week. We did a little bit of research on sport and leisure. We looked at different fitness classes. We looked into what benefits you might get from a fitness class, and then of course ultimately we started developing your own fitness class, which is kind of the last project that we've got to do to wrap this course up. And that was the course you just thinking about a venue, you know, maybe the sort of people that your class might be aimed at, what benefits people are going to get from your class, maybe something that makes it a little bit unique, makes it stand out in the rest of the marketplace, and just starting to pull bits together, like I say, using that workbook to just get some ideas down, sort of finalizing which one it is that you're going to go with, and then just working on a poster really just to get that information across, you know, almost as if it was going up in like you know, like a community center or something like that, if you were hiring the hall out, or maybe even design it like a Facebook poster. You know, I think it's probably me showing my age when I think a poster. I think of something that gets slapped on a wall as opposed to something we can share on a web page these days. You know, so yeah, you know, you can even design it sort of with the intention of it being sort of like an eye-catching social media posters, which is the way a lot of these things are done these days. You know, that's probably how you might hear about the classes that are local to you. You know, when we did a little bit of research, maybe that was how you actually started investigating what was local and near you as well, you know. So there's no reason we couldn't do it in that sort of form, as long as it's something that you can in sort of like a Zoom one-to-one, or you know, sort of over like a one-to-one basis, be able to just sort of talk us through it. Exactly. You know, pretty much that's all you've got to do, and generate a little bit of hype.
And yeah, there's many great kind of resources and websites out there. Obviously, you're not being graded on your art, so don't worry if you can only draw a stickman or put in like a picture. Like, don't worry about that, obviously, because you're not being graded on the artistic level of it. But
100%, yeah,
if you do want to kind of have like a digital poster and you want to spruce it up a bit, obviously, we've just you know, look through our YouTube channel. We've got a ton of sessions, digital intro to digital imaging. We've got a ton of you know, just look through some of the photo P sessions that we did earlier last year. Because, you know, photo P is like a free online version of Photoshop, and you could maybe look at some of them, and it could give you some inspiration for how you want to design your poster or something. Obviously, that's not mandatory, but if you did want to do that, that's obviously an option.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, some of the things that you guys do as well, like it blows my mind as somebody who's not sort of digital, sort of not sort of technical based or anything like that at all. You know, sort of some of the stuff you can pick up just from half an hour of watching somebody who actually knows what they're doing, like you
Yeah,
guys. You know, you can come a really long way in a really short time.
100%, man.
You know, especially if you can sort of because I guess the beauty of the digital side of things is you can have another window open with whatever it is that you're doing and sort of follow along and sort of mirror what you're seeing on the screen and stuff like that as well.
Definitely,
You know,
definitely.
which I imagine probably helps out quite a lot as well. So yeah, that is a really good point worth mentioning, buddy. You like Daniel says, you're not going to be graded at all on your art because I'm in no position to be grading anybody on their art like at all. So do you know what? If it's Stickman, happy days, go for it. If learning a little bit more about sort of like the maybe some photo editing and maybe just tuning into your creative side a little bit more, something that you do want to do, definitely check out some of the stuff from the digital side that's up on the channel, like Daniel mentioned, and of course, give us a shout if you're interested in any sort of upcoming courses as well that we might be able to sort of take your name down for and let you know when something's rolling around again with that. So cool, plenty there, plenty to be thinking about anyway, you know. And if you know what, if you are going to find yourself twiddling your thumbs now that this course is going to be finished, that's definitely something that you could check out. All the stuff that's coming up for term 3. That myself and the guys on the digital side are doing as well. So yeah, definitely check that out. We'll get this one boxed off first. We're nearly there. We're nearly there, guys. Stay with me. 12 weeks, and we're done and dusted. So what else did we look at last week? So we had a little bit of a look at some work related skills. You know, looking at stuff like time management, organization, being professional, being committed, all of that sort of thing, and sort of how that relates to it relates quite heavily to fitness, of course, as well. You know, your time management, your organization, planning, preparation, all of that sort of stuff. But those are so sort of they're skills that are so applicable in so many different areas of your life, aren't they? You know,
Totally.
And they will go a long way in the workplace, you know, in your social life and in your relationships as well. It can help with that as well. So these are skills that you know, I've mentioned throughout the course. I don't think we're ever really done practicing and honing these skills because they are so important, and they can be so beneficial. You know, it's stuff that we do all need to be working on. You know, we've talked before about how, you know, maybe there's a little bit of confidence in public speaking. You know, it doesn't. The people that we look at, you know, famous comedians, famous musicians that get up on stage, it doesn't mean that they don't get nervous anymore.
So
It
true,
just
man.
means that they're more used to doing it. They've learned how to channel those nerves and that anxiety and that sort of adrenaline into something that actually fuels their performance. But let's not be daft and kid ourselves that, you know, apart from the odd few, you know, a lot of them do still get those sort of feelings, and they are always still working on skills to do with that, you know, their delivery, their timing, you know, words that they're using. You know, comedians quite often will take a show on the road, won't they? You know, and do sort of like smaller venue gigs, try out jokes, you know, tweak things that they're going to tweak, and you know that is exactly the same as what we sort of pulling it back to what we talked about last week, repetition and just going over stuff, you know, trial and error, realize through practice what barriers are you going to hit, and from there you can practice what you're going to do to sort of overcome those barriers next time you hit them.
I can't even imagine how horrible the feeling of bombing must be. Like when you just say a joke and just nobody
Yeah,
laughs, like
yeah.
in a
Oh,
room full of people. That must be, man. That's they've got some courage to be able to do that and then come back. And if you listen to the most famous comedians talk, they've all done that. They've all been through it where like they've just bombed so hard, and oh, it sounds rough.
And do you know what, as well? Something else to do with comedians that I didn't realize was so commonplace is hecklers, and
Yeah,
people just wanting to join in and shout out. And you know what? That would probably be what threw me about the whole procedure. You know, you can learn your routine and your material, but someone just shouts something out in the front row, and it's just gonna throw me for six. Like it really would. So even that ability to sort of take everything in their stride, and do you know what, more often than not come out on top and put that person in their place. You know, it's something that it would be my biggest fear. You know, it's one of the things that you probably do worry about is, oh, what if someone shouts out that I'm not doing a good job or something like that.
I
You
know.
know, which normally most of the time that you guys are going to be doing presentations, be it at work, be it to myself and on these courses and stuff like that, that's never going to happen. You know,
Yeah, no, yeah,
that's not
never.
to say, you know, that there's not some part of you that's worried about that and that sort of side of things as well. But you know what? Yeah, even the best in the business still go through those feelings of, you know, apprehension and more often than not, they've learned actually to use that to their advantage and enhance their performance while they're out on stage as well. You know, but I guess that's what we're sort of circling around is that, you know, nobody has ever done getting better at public speaking, and nobody's ever done getting practicing things like organization and time management and stuff like that, because it's the same as anything else. You stop practicing these skills and they start to slip, you know, which is why we are always working on them, and we are always just reminding ourselves that everybody's going through the same thing as well. You know, someone that you look at and say, oh, do you know what, I wish I could speak in public as confidently as him. I've had people say that about me, actually, you know, come up to me at the end of the class like, oh, you do really well standing in a room of 20 people, 30 people and telling them what to do and stuff like that. And you know what, like at a time in my career, I absolutely dreaded being in that position, you know,
Yeah,
because I didn't feel as though I was able to do that. And, you know, from doing it, obviously your confidence grows, which is again something that we talked about last week, growing in confidence the more you're doing something. But yeah, you know, I was like, don't be fooled. I've mentioned before, 10 minutes before a class is due to start and there's 30 people booked on, I'm sat there thinking like, okay, got to get myself into a certain headspace, bring a certain energy. And you know what? It might seem like it comes easy to other people, but chances are it doesn't, you
it's
know.
it's like getting familiar with the feeling as well. I think like when that feeling's new to you, it's a lot harder. But when
Mhm,
you've
mhm.
done it a few times, it's still you still feel the same. But you know, like I know what you know what the feeling is. It's just some nerves. You're gonna get over it. So it's like it's being familiar with that emotion as well. I think is is
Yeah,
is, is
it
something else.
is. It's like a wave, isn't it? It's like a wave of
Yeah.
emotion and just sort of letting that pass and sort of composing yourself through that. I found is a massive part in realizing you get through the other side, the worst of it's gone, and you think, right, okay, I'm still here, right? Like I'm still going. Like, okay, maybe this isn't quite so bad, you
And
know.
you're so right, dude. And just touching on what you were saying about you like how you never done, I think that relates to like exercise a lot, right? It's like no matter how fit you are, it's not like, and it's the same with everything, but like if you get to a certain point, you're like, right, I've got my, you know, my goals have all been, I've met all my goals. You still need to maintain them.
Yes,
So
of
you can
course, yeah.
like, there's no done, there's no like being complete at the gym. I've finished now. I've completed the gym. It just
It's,
doesn't exist.
that's it. Yeah,
So,
completed it, mate. Yeah, completed it.
so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, it is exactly the same as your physical health. Your mental health is exactly the same because it's really important that we stay on top of that. You know, in terms of just practicing good routines and good habits and stuff like that. But yeah, our professional skill set is exactly the same. It's never done. It's never dusted. You know, it's always something that we're looking to hone. Because of course, as we're moving through life and we're coming across new challenges, new obstacles, we need to be prepared for them as well, you know, and as well prepared as we can be. So yeah, you know, it'd be nice to be able to say job done for like absolutely everything, but of course that's kind of not the nature of things, and we do need to stay on top of things. It's easier to stay on top of things once you've got there. You know, it's easier to maintain a weight than lose 5 stone. And certain skills work exactly the same, you know, but it is just a case of, yeah, staying on top of these skills. And like I say, just reminding yourself, so you maybe be a little bit kinder to yourself, you know. And maybe not put so much pressure on yourself. It's a process that we're all going through, you know. We're all doing it, we're all working to be better at these things. You know, so hopefully that just leaves you feeling a little bit more relaxed about that, because you know what, I've never met anybody who loves public speaking. You know, some people find it easier than others. Some public presentations and stuff like that, the nature, the way that we do, you know, I'm aware that something it's not the most appealing thing to be doing. Let's just put it that way. It's not. But like I say, a couple of minutes in, you'll realise it's just me and you, and we'll be golden. I'm sure. Okay, cool. So we ran over sort of your presentation last week, and then we sort of mentioned that once we are done with that one-to-one Zoom, we can actually give you a little bit of feedback. We can do your evaluation in your workbook, and that's the workbook's done. So do you know what? As much as these skills aren't done, these workbooks are going to be, So there's good news there for sure. Okay, buddy. So if you don't mind, just going next slide, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I sort of mentioned, we're just gonna have a little bit of a recap of everything, and then sort of touch on, like I say, at the end we'll just run through everything in terms of workbooks and stuff that do need sort of completing and submitting to get the course finished up. And as promised, we are going to have a little bit of a look again at nutrition and healthy eating habits. Sorry, just because I'm aware that was quite early on in the course, and of course, I feel that the nutritional side of things is such a minefield, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can go online and you read somebody's blog and it says, "Oh, stay away from bread because it's the devil and it's going to make it impossible for you to lose weight." And then you might look at like another sort of scientific post or something like that says, "Oh, okay, bread actually doesn't really have any more calories in than a wrap." So is it just 6 and 2 3s when we're swapping them out for wraps and stuff like that? Which is, those are both actual articles that I've read. So you're like, well, where do I go from here then? Where,
you get
what do I apply?
Yeah, you get insane stuff, man. Like obviously, like you get there's extremes on both sides as well. So I've seen like people, I don't know, Joe Rogan was talking about the carnivore diet, how people only
Mm-hmm.
eat meat and that's it. And then you get the opposite of that. You get people who are raw vegans, who
Mm-hmm.
like won't even cook vegetables. They eat like everything raw.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like
that's hardcore.
these are the extremes on both sides, obviously, and then they meet in the middle. But like, yeah, there's just so much different. But like, that's the thing. My point is the fact that how can someone say that only eating meat can be good for you versus someone who says that eating only vegetables and no dairy, that's actually what's good for you. So it's like it's trying to find the balance and finding out. Also, I feel like you have to be aware of like um people who design certain programs, and you've talked about this a lot, but people who design certain programs, like if they're a paleo guy or whatever, they're obviously making money off that product, so they're obviously going to kind of say that this is the healthiest thing. So it's like you need to be aware of like things like that as well.
Of course, absolutely. There's so much of it sort of goes on out there as well. Be it I remember hearing about there was a company that funded research into butter to prove that butter was healthy for you, or sort of not as bad as they thought. And then this research just came around full circle and showed that it was actually worse than they initially thought. So they've funded this research with the intention of being able to use it as part of a marketing ploy, haven't they?
Dude,
Like
like,
you being able to say, oh, 50, like 10% of scientists or 20% of scientists or whatever say that would recommend this product or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Nutritionists and, like you say, getting sort of endorsements and especially in the world of or the age of social media influencers and stuff like that, you've got to be careful who you're listening to and taking what information from, being aware of potential affiliations and links and
yeah,
stuff like that you do need to be aware of, because at the end of the day, a lot of food manufacturers are actually trying to pull the wool over our eyes, which is something that I don't
it's
think they realise, because we're kidded in a lot of ways to thinking that they've got the consumer's interests at heart,
I
which
mean,
isn't usually the case.
mate, like sugar companies in the 70s used to do that. Like that used to be a real thing. Like they used to actually pay the people who were doing the health, like organizing like like the health and nutrition guidelines for the government or whatever. And they would, they paid it off. So basically, they tried to make it look like fats and carbs were much worse than sugar, and they
Mm-hmm.
try to like downplay the actual like how bad sugar actually can be for you, or it is for you. So yeah, man, it's something that's always gone on that, and I think to this day, I heard something about some of the big drink companies like doing similar stuff to that, like trying to like paying for like studies to kind of show that um downplay the impact that fizzy drinks actually have and like the damage that they can do. So yeah, it's because I think they're multi-million dollar companies, right? Like The like
course, yeah.
the global companies. You think
Mhm.
if companies like Pepsi and Coke and stuff like that. So it's like
Mhm.
yeah, definitely it's scary stuff, man.
Yeah, and you think as well how many sort of products lean into sort of this because I feel as though it's a much bigger it's an issue that we're much more conscious of these years, the last 5 years maybe, mental health and maintaining mental health and stuff like that, and taking care, self care, I guess, and how many products are built into that sort of mentality as well. Do you know what I mean? Like Kit Kat, take a break,
Yeah,
take a Kit Kat. Do you know what I mean? Little things like that. And do you know how many people must just see it on the shelf and go, "Oh, don't mind if I do." Then,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and it's all very very deliberate. These things don't happen by accident. You
No,
know,
no.
I've seen and again, it's stuff we can get into a little bit later on. But just another example before we do spin on. I've seen in a shop, right? I've seen so a litre bottle of Coke next to a 2 litre bottle of Coke, and the 1 litre bottle of Coke says 15% less sugar, or 50% less sugar. I'm like, well, of course there's 50% less sugar. It's half the size.
That's a good
Um,
point. Yeah,
do you know what I
crazy,
mean?
right? Yeah.
And at the time, this was nearly 10 years ago. But they were getting away with that. They were getting away with that, and it's just absolutely insane. There's stuff out there that says organic, but doesn't tell you what organic means. There's stuff out there that says natural on the packaging without telling you what natural actually means. There's
Oh man,
stuff
yeah,
out
yeah.
there that's misleading you. If you go into the supermarket, and again, especially at the minute and for the last year, I can't imagine there's many of us that like really sort of hanging around supermarkets longer than we need to. I want to be in and I want to be out. I don't want to be stood there pulling up food labels and trying to look at this and trying to figure this out and trying to realize if this product's lying to us, or do you know what I mean? So there is
No,
so
yeah.
much, and I feel as though the more information we've got, um, the more of a position you as an individual are in to make your own personal choice, because what foods work for some people won't work for others. What
So true.
foods are sort of harmful to other people, and not others, is going to be different. I remember reading about a company not long ago, actually. It came up on a podcast, and it was a company called Viome. And what they do is they analyze your gut bacteria. So they can actually look and say, these 5 foods maybes are superfoods to you. So although we've got
Wow.
superfoods like your avocados and stuff like that are just generally sort of regarded as superfoods,
Yeah.
to some people those are actually going to be quite damaging.
Mhm.
So they can analyze that person's gut bacteria and say, okay, your gut bacteria will respond really well to bananas, maybe
Yeah.
onions, and whatever it's going to be. And then they can also tell you 5 things, however many things it's going to be, to really sort of stay away from, because it's actually causing you more harm than good. And that might be stuff that's coming off the shelf in sort of like a healthy section, or sort of like do you know what I mean, anything like that as well. So again, we're all individual. It's exactly the same as our fitness. Diet's going to be different for absolutely everybody. I've never given two people or put some people or two people onto the same diet over the years, because people are that unique.
Yeah.
Um, so again, that is something that we can get into a little bit down the line towards the end of the session, and just sort of recap on all of that as well, because like I say, it comes down to especially when it comes to weight gain and weight loss, which is why so many of us are dieting or exercising. Um, you know, all of these diets, your Atkins, your Juice Plus, your whatever it's going to be, your vegan diets, your pescatarian diets, there are other reasons behind them, and their ideology, but at the same time, they all work in the same way. You are going to work in a calorie deficit and you're going to lose weight, or you are going to be in a calorie surplus and you're going to put weight on. That's pretty much the top and bottom of it. That's the
Yeah.
way a lot of these things are going to work. I've said before, if I say it to you over and over again, just eat this apple every day, and you're going to lose a load of weight by the end of the week. Yeah, because you haven't eaten many calories, you've just had an apple. It doesn't make it a magic apple, So again, the more information you guys have, the more we can look at food and market employees and stuff like that with a little bit more of an analytical sort of mindset, and be able to make your own informed choices. Because you know what, if the manufacturer always has the ability to make your decision for you, the decision's always going to be yes, buy it please, isn't it? Because that's what they want, you know, at the end of the day. So yeah, just working on some stuff, being able to sort of see through some of the ploys that are out there, and like I said, just be able to make some of your own informed decisions when it comes to food, because that's where the lasting difference is always made, I think. You know, find like stuff like Weight Watchers and stuff like that's great. It might get you the results, but it doesn't give you an idea what to do in terms of diet if you get bored of what you're doing on Weight Watchers, if that makes sense. You know, you're ready for a bit of a change, you're ready to bring some new foods in, you're ready to maybe up your calories a little bit because you're maybe trying to gain a little bit of lean muscle or something like that. You, of course, have only ever done your old habits, which got you into the position that you're in right now, or that you were in the first place, where you said, okay, I need to make a change. And then you've got the habits that you've developed through whatever program it is that you're on, or whatever diet it is that you're on. And trying to find the middle ground and give yourself a little bit of flexibility is really hard. So I feel as though that's like I say, that's where the real sustainable change can come in, is when you, like I say, able to make them own decisions yourself. Okay, buddy, cool, right. If you don't mind rolling next slide, then please, dude. So, like I say, we're just going to have a little bit of run through of pretty much everything that we've looked at as we've run through these last 12 weeks. Because as much as it has flown over, you know, to say that 12 weeks is 3 months, you know, we were right at the start of the year when we started, you know, so some of this might be a little while ago. So again, I'm going to get everything in a playlist and sent out so you can go back and just double check and just refresh anything that you do want to do. So of course we looked at how the body works. And we completed that workbook and that unit. So we looked at the skeleton, you know, bones. We looked at joints, how they all fit together, how different joints move in different ways, which gives you your skeleton the sort of mobility that you've got. We of course looked at the heart and how the heart works, the role that the heart plays in getting oxygen around the body to muscles and organs that need it, you know. A little bit of a look at sort of blood vessels and blood pressure and stuff like that while we were on with that. And of course the lungs is just as important as the heart, really. You know, if you've not got the lungs bringing the oxygen in, your body's got nothing to send round the body to those muscles. And of course, we know by now, if muscles and organs aren't getting oxygen, sooner or later they're gonna completely shut off. So we need our lungs work, and so we looked at pretty much the intake of oxygen from the air outside the body, followed it through the body, round the body, back to the lungs, and expelled right out. So, you know, we did that journey in quite a lot of depth as well, you know. So again, might be something that you want to go back and refresh a couple of steps. And then we of course, that was when we looked at the healthy diet right at the start of the course as well. So again, that's why we're going to sort of circle back around to it at the end of the course. But of course, we were looking at the benefits of the healthy diet. You know, why do we look to change our diet? You know, what's the biggest benefits that we're probably going to get from that? You know, be it sort of more energy, more self-confidence, you know, moving a little bit better, you know, working through injuries, all of that sort of stuff, which was like I say, quite early on at the start of the course. Okay, next slide then. So from there we moved on to planning your own fitness program. You know, we looked at components of fitness, assessing your own fitness. We talked in quite a lot of depth about barriers to exercise as well, you know, stuff that's getting in the way. And of course, the main reason that we identify the barriers is so we can overcome them. You know, I sort of mentioned earlier on, there are some barriers that we can sort of look at and say from the off. You know, it might be a case of, okay, look, do you know what, I can't get to the gym after work, I've got to go get the kids from school. Once we've come across that barrier, you know, we can maybe look and put things in place, you know, to be able to say, you know, okay, maybe I'm going to ask, my child's got a friend at school, can I ask that person's mum to pick them up one night and maybe watch them for half an hour? You know, depending on how it lines up with your work day and stuff like that, putting things in place to overcome those barriers, stuff like that you can do from the off. And then you're going to have certain stuff that you're just going to realize through the process, you know, when you actually get to try and to carry out your plan. You know, maybe you get to the gym after work one night and you are just absolutely knackered, no motivation. You do that a couple of nights and you soon start to realize that, you know, maybe coming to the gym on an evening isn't going to work. You know, can you then flip it and say, okay, Do I have time? And do I have more energy in the morning to maybe come down on a morning? As unappealing as it sounds on paper, to get up early before work and go to the gym and do your exercise. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. They said, like, oh, would that not leave you more tired when you get to work?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm either getting to work half an hour after I've rolled out of bed and all I've had is a coffee, maybe it's a bit of light breakfast, or I'm turning up to work when I'm energized and engaged and sort of ready to go for the day after I've done an hour in the gym.
I've
I've been up an hour and a half, 2 hours by that point.
Yeah, I mean, I've done both. I used to go to the gym before work before, and it depended what I did. It would like, but like interestingly, like on the same lines, like and then I've also done it after work, and it's interesting. I guess it depends what you're training, but I asked more. Another thing is just on the same lines of what you're talking about is like whether to do it before food or after. And I've got a friend who does like a lot of powerlifting,
Okay.
and I asked him, I was like, what do you like? Do you think that it's better to do it in the morning when you've got all your energy, you haven't expended anything yet, or is it better to do it like after you've eaten later on in the day? And he says like he prefers it later on because he says you've ate a lot of food, so you've got more weight on you and you've
Yeah.
got more
Yeah.
energy in you. So he says that I prefer like once I've ate like all my meals and stuff to do it kind of a bit later on because I feel that's when I feel strongest. So I was like, okay,
Yeah. I can totally see that. There is a difference between sort of going to the gym with 3 meals in you for the day and going to the gym with absolutely nothing in. And
yeah,
like you say, in that case, if it's somebody's intention to just essentially lift as heavy as you can, you need that sort of in you. If you
yeah,
go in like not necessarily like a starved, but if you go on an empty stomach, the weight that you can actually lift is going to drop quite significantly.
yeah,
And your ability, especially if you're used to training at a certain point in the day. Now, we've got, like I said, you are going to have people in the gyms that are trying to put size on, which is and gain mass. And I've always thought about it like if you are training to put size on or to gain if you're trying to really gain anything in terms of strength or muscle size, you really probably do want to be training with some food in your system. Now, not to say that you couldn't, I don't know, maybe get up at 6, have your breakfast, train at 7 to 8. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't train on a morning. But at the same time, we've got a lot of people who are training to lose weight, body fat. Now I've always found that is more beneficial in sort of like what we call a fasted state. You might actually have come across it. It's something that a lot of people do actually use called fasted cardio, where you'll pretty much bodybuilders actually do it. So that's quite interesting to touch back to the point that you were just on about there, buddy, in that like they do need to lift heavy. So they will do their lifting on an evening when they've got 3 meals in them, but they will do their fat burning cardio to bring their muscles and their definition through more. They tend to do that first thing on the morning before
yeah,
they've eaten anything. So again, your food does link into your performance in the gym, and that is something that we could maybe look at in the drop-ins. If you guys are interested. We're starting to get ideas again about when we might be able to go back to doing those in person at Savvy Towers on a Monday morning, just make it a little bit more accessible for everybody as well. But yeah, that's not to say that there's necessarily a right and a wrong time of day to train. If you feel that a certain time of day works better for you, or that gets you to the gym, it's one of those things where I'm sure that again that lad that you were on about who was powerlifting, doing a lot of strength training, that probably was a big commitment in his life. He might have been training twice a day and stuff like that. I don't know if he had kids, but he was probably able to work his training in a way that let him be optimal,
yeah,
pretty much, which is great, which is absolutely amazing because eventually over time we are looking at being optimal, really, in terms of performance and in terms of just getting the most out of your day and our time here on Earth, really.
for
And,
sure,
and,
man.
and just absolutely making the most out of it. But for some people, at first, you just need to get there. You
So
know,
true, man. Yeah,
it doesn't need to be at a time of day where you can run like a 7-minute mile or something like that at first. especially if that is a barrier that you're having and something that you're struggling with and coming across quite regularly, you just need to find a time of day that you can get there, and start to maybe get some results, and start to see some results, so your motivation maybe picks up a little bit, and you can actually see, the payoff of the sacrifices that you're making.
It's
That go on,
yeah,
bud.
it's like what we were saying to Wibbs as well. I think last week or a week before, where it's like he hasn't got the motivation to go to the gym, so it's like go for a walk.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that's still something, right? And it's like just kind of building habits, a good habits. So it's like kind of once you start getting into the habit of walking all the time, then maybe you want to do more exercise because you're getting used to it. So it's like it's just kind of getting your foot kind of just getting it. Starting's always the hardest thing, isn't it? So that's ultimately it.
That's it, isn't it? What is it they say? Like an object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. It's like if you've got a rock on a beach and nobody comes along and pushes it, it's not going anywhere, is it really?
True.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't
True.
just gain. It doesn't just gain momentum
Yeah.
out of the universe from nowhere. That potential energy. And in this sense, it is like you say, buddy, just taking that first step, which is usually the hardest one, and that is where truth be told, that was where I did a lot of my work in my time over the gym, and it was making the gym and fitness
Yeah.
outside the gym as well accessible and manageable to people. Because I'm all for helping somebody who's trained 10 years really, really dive in and really train the certain areas that he wants to, and hit really, really sort of challenging goals. But it's more rewarding to me when you get like a mum of three who hasn't had time or energy or motivation to exercise in 10 years, who is now first taking her first steps on the treadmill again. Like, and
True.
haven't gone through a consultation process of being able to say to them, look, right, okay, you've got kids, you've got these barriers, you've got that, you're struggling with a bit of self-confidence, and just helping them is troubleshooting, really.
Exactly.
It's sitting down and saying, right, okay, you're a little bit self-confident, you're struggling to get to the gym after work, you've got the kids to look after. We can see that on a morning, your partner's still at home, they can watch the kids,
Yeah.
get them breakfasted, you can get out and do your bit that you need to do. It's now looking for that person, the training on a morning is a lot more sort of not only realistic but a lot more sensible. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It seems like it seems a lot more manageable. And then of course, if you set yourself a little goal of doing something and then you manage to do it, that of course breeds confidence in itself. You've marked something off, as opposed to the first week of your program, or you say to yourself, right, it's Monday, I'm going to get started today, I'm going to go to the gym tonight.
Yeah.
If you don't get to the gym that night, chances are you're going to be so demotivated, you're not going to try again the next day.
No, you're right.
You might kid yourself that you're going to try again the next week, which is where we get into the whole I'll start again on Monday
True.
ploy, which is sometimes more dangerous than having no intention of starting at all. you know
Um,
um
I know we're both partial to like a good quote, Rob. So it's not 100% relevant, but I'm gonna give you my favorite one, or one of my favorite ones, dude. And it's that slow is smooth, right? And smooth is fast. And I think that's it. It's very simple. So slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I really like that quote because I think it speaks a lot of truth to like that kind of the flow state. And I think just like ultimately like when you if you're doing something like any kind of physical exercise or anything like that, if you rush through it, or even like say put it in the context of like any kind of exercise like a run or something like that, if you kind of sprint through it and you rush through it, you're not going to do it properly. Whereas if you take your time
mhm.
and you do it slowly, because of how you're focusing on it, that you actually end up being faster than if you were
Yeah.
rushing. So
Oh,
it's
I
like
absolutely love that, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's awesome. I like that
it's a
one.
pretty cool one, right?
I like that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that is really relevant. Actually, it's similar to like do you know what? It reminds us of me dad when I used to play like Gran Turismo on the PlayStation growing up.
Yeah,
Any racing games, I would not brake. I would just slam into a corner,
that's it.
flee off the track. And he said to us one day, he was like, "Rob, go slower, and you'll go faster."
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, Okay, okay, and like yeah, there's little things like yeah, that's really bang on, mate. You know, you do start to slow down. You do really start to think about the process a little bit more and refining it and making it really work for you. And
Totally, man.
before you knowing it, you're moving quicker, especially in this sense in terms of progress and results. You're moving quicker than you ever thought you would be when you, especially when you were rushing, you know,
Exactly, because
and trying to cut them corners.
it's just that thing of like, trying to process thoughts while you're doing like a physical exercise. Like in that in the context of a game, it actually works really well. Like as you were saying, like I was playing, it's silly, but I was playing Mario Kart yesterday, and it's the same thing. It's like I was doing good because I was starting off, I was 10th in some of it, but then I was winning the race because I'm, taking my time, going around the corners, thinking about what you're doing while you're doing it, instead of just kind of thinking like I'm just gonna smash the accelerator and just like,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
Speed's not everything. Speed's not everything, and you know what? That probably couldn't be more relevant than when we're talking about fitness. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? Because especially when we're thinking about speed and shortcuts and sort of quick results and stuff like that, they never last. They never last. I've never seen them last. You know, be it these crash diets and stuff like that, while people are still
yeah,
trying to train, and you know, there are times where people need to lose weight pretty quick. Usually for health reasons is the only time I would really endorse that. Would be like it's okay, like your health is in a bad way. We need to get you in for heart bypass or this surgery or that surgery. We need to get this weight off you and we need to do it pretty quick. That's one thing. But if you are just trying to lose a little bit of weight so your dress fits a little bit better, or you can get in your suit from your wedding again or something like that, like who knows? Like there's no reason to rush it,
yeah,
and there's no evidence to suggest rushing it is even going to be the best way to go about it. You know, when we talk about yo-yo dieting, people lose a load of weight, they put weight back on, often end up heavier than when they started.
yeah.
You know, how many people look at them when they're that stone lighter in a month and say, "Oh, I'm dead jealous," you know, and then who's still looking at them 2 months later when they put it all back on, still feeling just as jealous, you know? Yeah, I would rather take the slow approach and maybe be a couple of pounds lighter by that point, you know, when the person who's trying to take shortcuts is back where they started, you know.
They I think they did like they had that program in America. I don't know if they had it in the UK as well. It's called The Biggest Loser. In
Oh, I've seen episodes of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically they have like Navy SEALs train them. They've got like top nutritionists, and they all lose on the show. All of them lose like usually lose like a good deal of weight.
Mhm.
But they did like a survey of the people who after the show kept the weight off, and the number was really really small. A lot of them put the weight
Was
back
there?
on,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and the reason for that obviously I think is just because it's in an environment that's completely unnatural. They haven't cultivated a lifestyle at all. They've literally, they've been in this controlled environment where it's easy for them to do it because everything around them's controlled. Whereas when they're out in the real world, because they've never had time to cultivate
Hmm.
that lifestyle, that they just go back to old habits. So it's like saying like, so that kind of extreme thing, it might be good for that moment, but it's not sustainable for them.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that can't be adapted, especially without further help. It can't be adapted to fit
Yeah,
everyday life.
yeah.
And that is exactly the sort of thing that I'm on about when it comes to um going to come off what one of your more typical sort of diets or your fad diets. When you come to move away from that and you've got no framework for anything else, you know, you've got no idea how to change that to suit like maybe new circumstances or I don't know, personal preference or whatever. It's like you say, they've been given the tools but not really or they've been shown how to use the tools but they haven't been really given them.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? They haven't been given them to take away to day-to-day life. And you know, that drill sergeant that's shouting at you, or do you know what, that diet that you were following, as soon as it's gone, you're treading water again. And what do people do? We go back to what we know best, which was probably the habits that got you, like we say, in the place where you started, where you said, okay, it's time to make a change, you know, which is, that's a really good point, that, buddy. You know, you have got to cultivate that change in general, you
it's
know.
yeah,
um
and it's like obviously me and my mate are massive fans of Kitchen Nightmares as well, Gordon
Oh
Ramsay.
yeah, yeah.
And we play a game where every time we finish the episode, we Google to see if the restaurant's still open, and like maybe
Okay.
8 or 9 times out of 10, it's usually closed. So
No way, really.
yeah, a lot of the time, man. I think like 20%, maybe less, or a bit more than that. There was also another survey similar to the Biggest Loser one, which had all the restaurants which had stayed open after Kitchen Nightmares, and it's actually the majority of them do close. So it's a similar thing, just different context, but similar thing, because
Yeah,
it's that's it, man. It's like the when you have like Gordon obviously helps them turn it around and stuff, but it's like they can't sustain it, it's
yeah. They're
so
not him. They're not him. They get him for a week or whatever it
exactly,
is. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
the same thing, man.
So yeah, think about it that way. Yeah, really, it's sort of like it's being able to cook in the kitchen without Gordon Ramsay shouting at you. That's the point that we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
That's the point that we're trying to get to the same standard without them being there shouting at you, pretty much, and like that's quite interesting actually, because I'd never even thought about like the longevity of those restaurants and stuff after he sort of moves on
Yeah, a lot
to
of them does.
somewhere else. But that's exactly it, and that's kind of the approach I've always taken with my PT as well. Like when I come in and start working with somebody, I want them when I leave to be able to carry on in the same way as if I was still there.
Yeah.
I want to be able to say, right, after 6 months of training, right, you know enough to train by yourself now. Give me a shout in a couple of months if you plateau or something like that.
Yeah.
That money that you would be spending on PT, treat yourself to a weekend away with the missus, or do you know what I mean? You've worked really hard, buy yourself some new trainers, some new protein, whatever it might be. I want people to be able to, when they're done with me, be it these courses, be it the PT in the gym, eventually I want people to know essentially just as much, and like you say, be able to make those informed decisions themselves, because that is the key to lasting change. I do truly believe that, definitely.
Yeah, 100%, man, and that's it. And all change comes from within, dude. So you can teach people and show people, but they've got to be willing to do it themselves. We talked about those 2 points with Biggest Loser and Kitchen Nightmares. That's people, everyone around them is helping them, and they're helping them get to that point. But as soon as those people go away, it's just a person, and that's where the real time is to continue, because that's when it gets tough. So it's exactly what we're saying, yeah.
Definitely, mate. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point, that, mate.
Because you're taking
Um,
taking the training wheels off.
that's exactly it, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
exactly it. It's essentially like when you have been on like a diet that outlines what you should be eating, as opposed to when I use the term diet, I've sort of mentioned, I think about it as just your intake for the day. Everybody's on a diet. It's just how good that diet is varies. Do you know what I mean? Someone who eats a takeaway for every meal of every day has a diet. It's just not a very good, or not a very
The
advisable
takeaway
one,
diet. It's a
you
classic,
know.
that one.
And that's exactly, yeah. And like you say, it is like taking the training wheels off at some point. And again, why we're going to look at nutrition later on, why we've touched on all of these the way that we have as we've gone through. When the training wheels comes off at the end of the session, and it's like course done, don't for one second think that I'm not always here to support and stuff like that as well, because I'm always just an email away. But of course, I want you guys to be able to go away and making some of these decisions for yourself, with the information that we've sort of covered as well. When it came to planning your own fitness program, we talked as well about fitness targets. I know it's something that we have just kind of touched on a little bit. Making your targets something that you can achieve to sort of use as sort of like a motivation boost. I think of every target that you hit as like them little speed ramps in Mario Kart, or Crash Team Racing, where you hit them, you skid off and you're on to the next one. You've hit your goal.
Stuff.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Every time you don't hit one of your targets, it demotivates you. Do you know what? So chances are you're probably not even going to be trying as hard as you were in the first place.
So
you know,
true, man.
so that is what we want to try and stay away from. Which is why, of course, we do make our goals sort of smart, sort of realistic and reasonable. We've got to make sure that they're achievable as well. And I've always found that it helps to put like a little bit of a time or like a deadline on there as well,
Yeah.
that we'd like to have them done by. So we're being quite specific with our targets. We're not saying I would like to be I'd like to be fitter. It's like, okay, what does that look like to you? How can we turn that into something that's actually measurable?
Yeah.
because technically following that, I could get you on the treadmill again next week, and as long as you run a second faster, in theory, we could say that you're a little bit fitter. But of course, we all know that that's not necessarily the case, and that's probably not what that person meant in the first place. So do you want to say, right, I would like to be able to run a mile in this time by this point, by the end of the month, or within 2 months or something like that. That's what we're talking when we're talking about being sort of specific, and we can put a time date on there as well. And like I say, write them down, hold yourself a little bit more accountable to them as well. I
Yeah.
think it's all too easy to sort of agree to a target in your head, um, and then, like, if you don't get there, not to mention that you might not be fully engaged in getting there in the first place, but you don't get there and you think to yourself, oh, it's okay. I was never something that I really sort of thought I'd be able to do anyway. It's like, well,
Yeah.
if that's the case, it probably shouldn't have been your target. Give yourself something
True.
that you know that you can do. Give yourself something easy. Again, coming back to a psychology point of view, certain people, when I used to get them in the gym for their first session, certain people, you get the idea that they just want absolutely beasting, and that is just the way that they're going to respond. 9 people out of 10 want to come away from their first PT session feeling as though they've managed and it's been achievable and it's been realistic, and then they can start looking forward to the next one, as
Man,
opposed to thinking, oh, do you know what, I'm just dreading going in for the next one.
do you want to know? Do you want to know something, dude?
Go on.
Like,
Always.
for me, I think that's a really good point what you're saying, right? Because like, it's so weird the way that the brain works, right? Because I obviously I could speak Chinese, right? And when I was in China, like I could see people. I never thought I would be able to speak Chinese,
Hmm.
and then I saw I met people who could speak Chinese who I thought like this guy, like not in a nasty way, but like this guy doesn't seem like the smartest person, but they can speak Chinese like fluently, right?
Yeah.
And when I met
Yeah.
people like that, it made me realize like I can do this, you know what I mean? Like anybody can actually do this. And like there's like one of my favorite filmmakers, like Robert Rodriguez, and
Okay.
he told a similar story where like there was a certain guy who was like a painter or something, and he painted in a certain way, and Robert Rodriguez was like, I'd never be able to paint like that. And he went right to the guy's house, and the guy was like, this is how you do it. And he was just like, it can't be that simple. And then all of a sudden, like Robert Rodriguez could do it as well. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like sometimes it takes like,
Yeah.
because you create these barriers in your brain where you think like, I physically can't do it because it seems like such a difficult, like
Yeah.
speaking Chinese, man. Like well, I never thought I would be able to do that because it's one of the hardest languages in the world. But just seeing other people do it made me realize I could, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Definitely.
it's like sometimes we put these barriers, like sometimes just seeing someone be able to do it and them being humanized in our mind, like it makes us realize that it's not that difficult. You know what I mean? Because we look at you know, that's the thing. So I reckon, right, like say if we've got someone who's really like heavily overweight or something like that, and then they met someone else who's lost like 10 stone or 15 stone. If they
Mhm.
got to know them as a friend, they would realize in their own mind that I can also do that. Because that
Absolutely.
person becomes more humanized and they think like, oh, I know this person. Like this person's just a human like me. That's the
Yeah.
point.
That's the thing. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
it. It's
it's
like this
crazy.
person was also in the same position as me once upon a time. Look,
Yeah, but like,
you know what? Yeah, it's easy to sit there and say, do you know what? I'll never be able to speak Chinese because I can't speak Chinese right now.
yeah,
It does seem impossible. It is impossible right now because I haven't even made a start. Right now, I will never speak Chinese because I haven't acknowledged that I can learn that. I haven't acknowledged within myself that I can go away and develop these skills, and that's a really good point, mate.
when you
Um,
meet, you start to realize though that like, you're like this person's like just a human like me. You know what I mean? They've
yeah,
literally just a human like me. They don't have anything special, and I think we always, we're quick to kind of say, I'm not the kind of person to do that, or I can't. I'm not as smart enough to do that. But like, you realize like, no, you actually can. Like, there's no superhuman. Nobody's
no,
Superman.
no, no.
Yeah, like yes, some people have better natural attributes than other people, but it's that doesn't mean that you can't do it. So
Definitely, mate. Definitely, that's a really good point. You know, we had a guy at the last gym that I was working at who had lost. He lost about 7 stone, like relatively consistently is the most impressive thing about that. You know that it came down at the speed that it should have come down. He didn't lose 7 stone immediately and put it straight back on. So he actually he was getting into pretty good shape actually, and people were coming up to him and he would show them pictures of, do you know what, this was made like a year ago, this was made 2 years ago, and people would be looking and saying like, I kind of believe that that's you. Do you know what I mean? How have you
yeah,
got to this point? And he's like, literally, he was just like baby steps, one day at a time, you know.
yeah, man.
And like you say, like you sort of mentioned earlier on, getting started is really usually the hard part, you know, and acknowledging that it is achievable, you know, something that you can go and do. If somebody else can do it, chances are you can learn to do it as well, you know. So do you know what, mate? I find it absolutely mind blowing, really. And again, a bit of a tangent before we spin on, but I find it amazing that our brain is our ultimate survival tool as
Yeah,
a species, but it works against us so often, doesn't it?
so true, man. Yeah,
It's kind of more often than not we're our own worst enemy, setting limitations, setting barriers, creating barriers, you know. Um,
so true. It's
it,
so
it,
true.
it
And
is,
it's crazy as well, man, because it's just it's the same with everything. You kind of adapt to your environment as well, you know. Like it's like when with certain stuff with films, it's like I felt like I could never, I wouldn't be able to kind of shoot that kind of movie, or I wouldn't be able to kind of edit in to this level. But it's like when you're around people who are also doing it, you just pick it up and you start to
yeah,
do it, and it's like, so it's that's another thing, man. It's kind of putting yourself in that
yeah.
environment, I think, as well.
Yeah, mate, you know what? I did that last year with my fitness videos. I'd never done anything like that before at all. And then I never thought I would be capable of doing anything like that. I mean, they're quite basic, obviously, but at the same time, like it was anything that I'd ever done. And, you know, Dan said to us, can you get these done? And I followed an approach that I read a couple of years ago. I think I've mentioned it to you before, but it's this idea of if you're nervous or anxious about doing something, just say yes. And when the pressure's on, chances are you'll figure out how to do it,
So true, man. Yeah.
you know. And again, you know, if you don't take that first step, you'll never know. You know, you're selling yourself short at the end of the day, which is a bit of a travesty, to be honest, because as humans we're capable of so much, and capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for, you know. So again, but just it's not something that you can actively control, but something to be mindful of, that you know what, your biggest critic is probably always going to be yourself, you
The,
know, and the person who's setting your limitations is
so true.
probably yourself as well.
Not to go in, I don't want to go like too deep in a tangent, but I just think that there's something so interesting about that like environmental factor as well, because I think like they did like tests in there's certain cities where, if a certain people are like, there's like a certain cities in America where there are a lot of people are quite like overweight, and like you, if you're born in that city, you are more likely to be overweight.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got like places like um, Okinawa in Japan, or there's like a Greek island I forget the name of, too. These islands which have the highest life expectancy in the world, and part of that you could say, well, that's down to the nice weather, and the climate's nice. So that stuff is stuff that they can't control. But in terms of diet and things like that, like nobody is telling them. There's not like a leaflet that goes around the city that tells everyone to follow the same diet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because they become part of the environment, I think, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show that like that's also like an influencing factor, I think. So
Oh,
um,
definitely, buddy, definitely. And you know what? We can even link that background to fitness by sort of coming back to something that I mentioned when we were looking at inductions and stuff like that. Like your environment is going to dictate a large part of your success. Even just in instilling certain habits and qualities and stuff like that within yourself, you know. So coming back to that fitness side of things and just thinking about when you're picking your own fitness route and which way you're going to do it, try and put yourself in an environment that's going to help you out the most. You know, can you do an induction in a couple of different gyms? Maybe what staff, what client, what sort of PTs or whatever, feels like is going to be approachable, who's going to be able to give you a little bit of information when you need it, what machines have they got, what kit have they got that's available, is that sort of related to your goals, or are you sort of trying to lose a load of weight and you're accidentally finding yourself walking around a strongman gym? Do you know what I mean? And you're getting an induction at a strongman gym and you're going to go to one of the PTs and say, how do I cut down and how do I lose some weight? And that's not going to be sort of, losing weight isn't in a strongman's vocabulary, really, So we're thinking about the environment and making it as productive as possible to yourself as well. I know that there's a lot of stuff in life that we can't control. So that is why I guess it is as important as we can to manipulate what we can, try and put yourself in an environment where you're going to be successful. It's the same as if you were studying for an exam, you wouldn't go and put yourself in the loudest room in the house, turn the telly on full whack, turn the speaker on behind you, and then sit and try and study. You take yourself to a quiet room and pick an environment that's going to be most beneficial to your goals,
Totally.
which needs to be the same with your fitness as well. Now, what Daniel mentioned earlier on, linking to what I'd said to Wib the other week, was it doesn't have to be a gym. That environment doesn't have to be a gym. It can be group exercise. That environment might be outdoors in a walking group or a rambling group. That environment refers to the people around you and the activities going on around you as much as the physical environment as well. So put yourself in the best position to succeed.
Totally. And I've got a friend who is quite overweight, and does he does football, and
Okay.
it's like a football, like five-a-side football for like larger guys, really. And they all like, they've got like the own league and stuff, and like he absolutely loves that. And it's like, obviously he might not feel comfortable doing like five-a-side with like just a normal like league, because you might think, you feel a bit uncomfortable, a bit self-conscious. But this is like all people who are a bit like larger, so I think that that's definitely, so some stuff like that is out there, because we were talking about environment. So I think that that's it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, there's more out there than even I realised, truth be told, mate. It's only the last couple of years you're seeing things pop up like no running football and no contact football. Where you've got guys over 50-year-old who, whose knees don't work like they used to, or hips and ankles don't work like they used to. They're maybe not as fit as they were. They maybe are carrying a little bit of weight, but it's something out there for them to go and be active in an environment that is encouraging to them, rather than being detrimental as well. So that is definitely something to think about in terms of your own fitness program and your own fitness journey. You do want to be thinking about the environment that you're in as well. As well as, like I say, just having a plan of attack before you get started, really, because the old saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So
Yeah.
having it laid out in front of you definitely gives you a bit more of an idea of the way that you'd like to progress. Okay, mate, we'll roll next slide then, please, buddy, if you don't mind. So this was the unit that was linked in with presentation skills. This was its own workbook. We looked at reasons for using a presentation, be it teaching, be it sales, be it just spreading information, all of that sort of stuff. We looked at presentation styles, sort of using cue cards, maybe using sort of adding a lot to it yourself, just using them as pointers. Are you reading from a poster, from like a slideshow on a computer, online, that sort of thing? Of course, we've got presentations these days done over Zoom calls and Skype and FaceTime and stuff like that as well, So there's a lot of different presentation styles out there and reasons that we would use them. And I guess the biggest takeaway that we sort of came to that week and had from that week was, of course, the context is absolutely massive, isn't it, when it comes to a presentation and putting it together? Who's your audience, what's the purpose, what are you trying to actually get a point? Are you trying to convince somebody, are you trying to sell something to somebody, are you trying to get them to invest or engage in whatever it is that you're talking about? So again, there's a lot of different situations that we might be given a presentation that's going to really inform the content and the style of the presentation. Then we looked at like some tips, stuff to make the whole process a little bit easier, because I know we mentioned it earlier on as well. And it's something that I'll put my hands up and say, public speaking's never been something that I'm absolutely over the moon about doing. all through school I was the same. I must sort of admit I've got a lot better at doing it, not necessarily in terms of quality, but in terms of confidence in doing it anyway. I've got a lot more able to do it, and over the years of PT and stuff like that, that was one of the biggest reasons I didn't want to do group coaching, and like teach classes and stuff like that. And then I met Mel, and she said, look, Rob, I feel like you'd be good at it. Again, I said yes. I figured out how to do it when the time came, and you know what? I've only got more and more confident doing it as the years go on, So again, I've come across things like, of course, we've mentioned cue cards as stuff to keep you sort of right. Sometimes I'll use like a crib sheet or a cheat sheet, where I can write down, okay, I need to make sure that I mention these things today. They're not on the slides, but I need to make sure that they get mentioned while we're there, that sort of thing. Using a bottle of water to take a pause or to take a break when you do feel like you've maybe lost your place a little bit, or you maybe just running out of breath a little bit. That's something that I think you don't really think about till you start doing it, and then you just find yourself sentence after sentence after sentence. You realize you haven't stopped for a breather. And go on, bud.
There's a thing as well, dude, where like it literally like I was filming recently, right, and like it's just like a weird thing that happens when people are like kind of in like a public speaking situation. I was interviewing someone, and they weren't saying right, but they were like starting to get a bit kind of caught up in themselves, and they were like getting a bit nervous, I could see. And so I tried to put them at ease a bit, and I was saying like, if you say don't worry about it because we can cut it out or anything like that. But like I was just saying in general, I was saying like, don't worry, we can go one at a time, we can do as many takes as you want, and if you do say anything like then we can cut it out. And I just threw that in there just to kind of put her at ease. But after I said that, for some reason, in between every sentence, they said they were like
Really,
and I was nosing, I was listening to it, and I was thinking, oh man, like it's gonna be difficult to edit this, but like
just thinking I shouldn't have said no.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything, but like it's just a weird thing that happens. I've noticed it myself before. It's when you get the thing, or it could be like, it's any filler word. When you get that in your mind, it just becomes, it's so weird. You can't stop saying it. And,
no, it's like a self-rewarding cycle, isn't it? It's like,
like it's one of those things, and loads of weird stuff like that just get stuck in your head. Like things like you notice that sometimes you think about like the process of swallowing, like when you're swallowing all day, right? You're just not aware of it, but then when you become aware of that, you start to think about it, and it's weird. It's the same thing as breathing. Breathing's like, and that's how people have panic attacks, because breathing is something that is done constantly throughout the day, and you just don't think about it. But when you draw attention to it, then you might think, especially when you're public speaking, you think your breath's going faster and faster, and then you're like, oh,
yeah.
So it's easy to get something stuck in your head like that, I think. And it's the same thing with like something that's happened to me public speaking as well, is my mouth getting dry. And then you start to think about your mouth getting dry. That's why we're talking about water, and that's so good, because I've had it where I've been public speaking and I feel like there's just sand in my mouth.
Yeah, definitely.
So definitely advise the water for practical use, and for, as you said, it's something to put in your hands, it's something to grab, it's something to take a quick break for. So it's a good thing to kind of bring with you.
Definitely, mate. Absolutely, yeah. Really good point. Like that bottle of water doubles up, doesn't it? Definitely doubles up and helps out, And I found that, especially that's something that I found when I was planning that speech for my sister's wedding, when I was best man. I found that, like, as I was practicing my speech, I was getting like the same points where I was getting a little bit out of breath, and the same points where I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, I've got a bit dry mouth. So it almost got to the point where like it becomes almost scripted and part of the presentation itself. Like, it's almost cued when I am going to take a break, or when I am going to pause for a little bit of a breath. And again, sort of coming back to the other slide with barriers, it works exactly the same in a little bit of trial and error. If you realize it through practice that you're struggling, like pronouncing a certain word, or getting thirsty when you get to a certain point, or speeding up your speech to the point where you're struggling for breath by the end of it, those are the points, and that's your chance through practice and rehearsal to really try to sculpt those bits and sort of figure out those bits in a way that's going to work for you in a way that you're comfortable. So when the day comes, hopefully you're not even going to experience a lot of those things,
Yeah.
and if you do, you know how to deal with them. The worst time to realize that you don't know how a word is actually read out loud is when you're in front of a room full of people and you're due to read this word.
Honestly, mate, I was just about to say the same thing. Like, literally, like, that is the biggest tip that I could probably give is just saying it out loud. Because there's literally, like, I'd made that mistake myself years ago when I'd read it in my mind like 100 times, and I'd sat there and I'd read it and I'd read it, and in my mind it seems fine, but saying it out loud is a different thing, and you need to say it out loud, even if it's just in your room. Anything, just say it out loud, read through it, make sure that you can actually say it, because the way you say it in your mind is actually different to the way you're saying it out loud. So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to at least run through that.
Definitely, yeah, and it all comes from, like you say, sort of being familiar and being comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing, isn't it? Are you like, how well do you know what it is that you're about to say? How well do you know the presentation? How well do you know the facts behind it? And how well can you explain the graph that's on there that you've chose to use to get your point across, and stuff like that, and it all comes down to just being familiar with it. You need to be so familiar with it, or give off the air that you're so familiar with it that it's easier for other people to engage with and trust your word on it, really, isn't it?
Totally, mate. And I think it depends on the person. Some people, if you're really going to be too nervous to otherwise, then it's fine to go completely on the book. But like, I think that if you really know a subject, it doesn't need like like you don't need to be that scripted, because I feel like that's something that people trips people up a bit. Like, they're like, so they know a subject really well, but because they've made a script for a presentation, they want to stick to that script
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know this subject, you could talk to me about this subject all day if we were having a conversation. So why is it in a different setting that it has to be like so kind of robotic? It's like it doesn't, you know what I mean? So it's like, and I see that when I interview people, sometimes it's like they've had these questions and they've prepared the answers exactly and everything down to a T, and then when they're messing it up, they're messing the script up. But they know the subject, they know an answer to the question. If I
Yeah.
had a conversation, asked them that question, they'd answer it no problem. But it's because they have prepared this exact answer, and then they're messing it up in the mind. And but you can just talk about it. You don't have to do that. So if you know the subject really, um, what I usually do is like, and it depends on the person. It's, if it doesn't suit you, then you might want to have something more exact and precise. That's fine. But what I usually do is I'll have a general idea of what I'm going to talk about, and then what the next point will be, and certain points that I want to touch on, and then I'll just kind of talk about those points, and I'll say why I think something, and sometimes you might talk a bit of nonsense for like a couple of seconds. That's fine if you're like, oh, I don't really know what I'm saying with this point, but then you come on to the next thing, and then you'll be able to talk a bit more free about it, and that way you're just going to come across so much more natural than if you're saying
Definitely.
like word for word exactly what you've prepared.
Especially when that entails looking down at a piece of paper and not being able to look up and meet anybody's gaze, engage with the audience and stuff like that. You may
Exactly.
actually, again, given that the nature of these presentations is in these posters is stuff that is really sort of important to you and sort of relevant to yourself. Maybe you don't need a script word for word. Maybe it's like Daniel says, you can just have a couple of bullet points that just, I'd like to mention this, I'd like to mention this, I'd like to mention this. You can look back down at your cards, if you do lose your place. Same again, I did for my sister's wedding. I had cue cards, but again, through repetition, I would get to the point of like, I actually got to the point where I knew that I would pair up in my mind the end of one paragraph and the start of the next, so I knew naturally where the progression came from, and
Mm-hmm.
and where I was going to move in. And of course, once I'd started the paragraph, it was just a case of just reeling it off, really, because again, I had practiced it that much,
Yeah.
which does actually come into part of planning a presentation. It is just know your material, know what it is that you're talking about, because no matter what level of expertise you're trying to demonstrate, I think whatever room you're in, if you're the one giving the presentation, it's almost expected that you should know more about it than your audience. or have a deeper understanding of it and maybe be able to answer questions. Again, thinking about your presentation style, is it something that you're going to even, is a Q&A session anything that you're going to sort of encourage or allow? Are you going to open it up to questions? Are you going to take questions as you go? Are you going to take questions at the end? Which is, of course, going to make your layout look totally different as well. We've got to think about that, just so nothing blindsides you as well. And again, you could say to people at the start of the presentation, like, "Oh, just save any questions till the end." You know, at that point, nobody's going to shout out the question, as well-meaning and as well-intentioned as it may be, and sort of throw you off mid-sentence and sort of throw you on a bit of a loop, you know. So again, just be aware what your presentation style is going to be, and then, like I say, when it comes to planning it, you know, thinking about resources that we're going to use as well, and being able to sort of again, thinking about how are you going to engage with the audience? Are you going to engage with the audience? That sort of thing.
It depends on the context as well. Obviously, as we're saying, you know, like if it's like if it's a, I don't know, you know, it depends on, like, once again, like what kind of, if it's something very very professional, maybe the audience isn't expecting that much interaction. But I remember you saying as well, that you went to that thing in London, I think it was, and you said it was a full day of presentations. And I remember
Oh
you saying,
man, oh, that business course that I did.
by the, yeah, you said by the
Yeah.
end of it you were just like bored out your mind, and it's like,
Oh mate, it was 2 days. It was 2 days, and at the end of the first one, I knew I had to go back for the second. And mate, I was at my wits' end.
I
I
bet.
was at my wits' end.
So yeah, it's like so that's it. You need some interaction, right? It's like they need to get you to do something. Like, it can still be a presentation, but there's got to be some kind of interaction there to get your brain stimulated.
Yeah,
So
it could be a joke, a little
yeah,
bit of humor.
exactly.
Bring in a little bit of humor. It doesn't give the audience chance to speak, but I guess it more sort of acknowledges their presence and gives them something, doesn't it? You know, it gives them a way to react rather than just sitting. Because I feel like once you get a laugh out of somebody, like you're rolling. Like, that's what I did again with my wedding speech. I put a joke or two in early doors, and it just relaxed me so much because I was. Obviously, you don't expect people to roll about clutching their sides and stuff like that. But you know what? If I drop this in and a few people giggle, then I know that I've got a few people in the room on side, and that
Definitely.
automatically takes away the feeling of it's me and them. You
Breaks
know,
the ice.
yeah, it does. It does, mate. You know,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, and
it's
like it
really
just
important at the start of
exactly.
something like that. Yeah, just sort of like you say, breaking the ice and easing it in. You know, that's a really good point, buddy, as well. And we'd mentioned sort of like I say, some of the other stuff that we can use, and when we're planning visual aids, you know, we've talked about images that we can use, graphs, charts, all of that sort of stuff. Again, you know, talking about the context, is it necessary? Sometimes it is, you know, if you can say to somebody like, okay, if I was just to give you two figures, you know, like 25 people have done this, 50 people prefer this. And you're like, oh, okay, happy days. Or then if you see a graph or a chart where one bar is twice the size of the other, it starts to drive that home a little bit more, doesn't it? You know, it might get people to buy in a little bit more.
On your presentation, you never want too much text, because it's like if literally, dude, like, if that's like some very good practical advice. Like, if you literally, because anybody, if you put a presentation up and it's just a paragraph of text, no, like, either everyone's going to read it, they're not going to listen to what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just going to get very boring very quickly. So on it's fine to have that on your cue card. It's not, it's maybe, you know, you should maybe know it off by heart, because you don't really want to be looking down at the whole time, as we mentioned. But definitely don't have that kind of like level of text on your presentation. As Rob said, you know, if you're talking about some statistics in that and it's amongst a paragraph of text, it looks really dull and boring. But if you've got like a chart, and that's all that's on your presentation is the chart showing the stats that you're going to talk about, then yeah, talk about what you want to talk about on your cue card, and then you can point to your stats which are behind, and it illustrates your point. You know,
Yeah,
you want the presentation should illustrate your points. You know, it should
mhm.
bring a bit more life to your points. It should make stuff stand out. It shouldn't repeat exactly what your points are.
That's a
So
really good point, that mate. Yeah, I never really considered it that way either.
yeah,
Yeah, it should enhance the points that you're trying to
definitely.
make. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I could give the audience a little bit of a focal point as well as something that might catch the eye. And again, at the same time, like, rather than them just sitting and looking at you while you're talking, they might actually be trying to, you know, break down some of the information in the chart or the graph, or it might just be a picture. Do you know what? Like, I'm still gonna, if I'm at a presentation and there's something interesting visually to look at, it doesn't stop me listening to the speaker.
Yeah.
but it gives me maybe something else to look at while that speaker's talking, you know, and then they don't feel as though everybody's staring at them, which again can make things a little bit easier.
Of
Give
course.
people something to look at that isn't necessarily you, because when you look around a room of people, especially when you're just starting, and you've just got 20 sets of eyes looking back at you like, oh, go on then, do the thing, and you're like, oh, okay. It can be a little bit daunting, and that can rattle you a little bit as well, you know.
Totally,
But
man. Totally.
again, if you can even part way through your presentation, if you can see, and if you can just draw your eyes to, or just divert your eyes to the graph that's on the presentation, I'll start to explain what you're looking at a little bit. You know, break it down. You know, it's that saying, a picture says 1,000 words. Sometimes even more, I would say. You know,
True.
and it is just, again, it's just using them in the right context, and like Daniel made sort of mentioned a second ago, use it to highlight and sort of enhance everything that you are trying to say. Oh, I've just noticed Wib's getting in the chat this morning. Morning, Wib. Nice to have you in, bud. Hope you're well, man. Hope we're all right. Okay, so
Hey, Webs. And as you're saying, just to your point, Rob, you could put some humor in your presentation, even like, you know, like you could have like a funny kind of meme or a picture or something like that. If you're creative, you could make like a funny picture related to the topic.
mhm,
Once again, it depends on the context, but as we were saying, like humor can break things up a little bit and it can put people at ease. Yeah, definitely.
definitely, yeah. Do you know what I've always found as work, especially in that sort of scenario, is just from the outset, acknowledging that like it's a potentially awkward atmosphere. It's gonna be. It's naturally, you know. You've got one person who is sort of speaking to a group, and you've got a group that are sitting there waiting for the words of one person. It's not the most organic setting in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, the more confident you can get with it, and like I say, just acknowledge from day one, like sort of, kind of like I was getting on with at the start of this little section where I'm just saying like, don't be sitting around waiting for the day that you're not nervous,
Yeah.
because that day might not come. You know, it's just getting used to doing it regardless, and in spite of those feelings as well. You know. Okay, cool. So same again, yeah. Once that's done, we can get a little bit of evaluation done. We can get that in that presentation skills workbook. That workbook will be done, and then we'll be spinning on. So if we can go on next slide then, please, buddy. Taking part in exercise and fitness unit that we did. So again, we were looking at exercise and fitness that's local, facilities that we might use, be it sort of like a park outdoors, be it sort of like a public footpath for walking, be it a gym, be it a community centre for sort of group exercise and stuff like that. Just thinking about what facilities we've got available to us, and more specifically local to you guys as well. You know, especially like I've sort of mentioned throughout, as things are opening up again, as things are potentially moving back towards a little bit of normality, you know, we need to be aware what's available, what the procedures are, what their sort of COVID guidelines are, and the way that they're doing things at the minute. I might get a chance to get hold of Sue this week and see if she's had any joy with swimming, because I know that one of our learners has been trying to get booked in with swimming and get down for a swim. Be interesting to know what's going on there. You know, are changing rooms allowed to be open? Are we still getting sort of dried up poolside and just sort of hoing your clothes on over your wet cosy or what? You know, there's a lot of stuff changing, and I imagine the next couple of months is going to see a lot of change one way or another. You know, so. Just keep your ear to the ground. Again, that was why we sort of did what we were doing, looking into what's available, what's going to be available, how much it costs, kit that you might need for it, etc. You know, all of that sort of stuff that we need to think about. We looked at health and safety when it comes to fitness as well, because of course we need to, as much as we need to be sort of participating in activity and being active and getting some exercise in, we need to make sure that we're doing it safe, of course, don't we? You know, we need to make sure that we're not going to pick up injuries or you know, potentially even worse. You know, depending on what we're actually talking about. You know, there's a lot can go wrong in a health and fitness environment, so we need to be aware of what those things are and how we can stay on top of them and sort of assess those risks and minimize those risks as much as possible as well. You know, We talked about PARQs, which is pretty much just it's a physical activity readiness questionnaire that you should fill in before starting any exercise program at a gym, with a PT, group classes, whatever it is. You should be filling in this form that says, you know, I am fit, I'm healthy to participate. If you believe that there's any reason that you're not healthy to participate, that needs to be declared, and potentially the instructor will just send you away to get sort of clearance from your PT, from your GP, sorry, from your doctor, to just make sure that yes, okay, they're happy with you coming and exercising. Because where 99% of us would benefit from more exercise and more activity, there are some people that, you know, exercise isn't going to be advised. You know, whether you're coming back from a surgery and it's too soon to be exercising or something. You know, might be some circumstances where you need GP clearance. So again, you know, just making sure that we're doing it safe. Me as an instructor, and hopefully all of the instructors out there, want to see people getting the most out of their time, their efforts, their money, and we don't want to see people pick up an injury that's going to leave them sidelined for 6 months, you know, and not being able to do what it is that they were initially setting out to do. That's the last place that we want to end up, and that's why it's so important that we're doing it safely. You know, that's why we'll always put emphasis on a warm up and a cool down, you know, before a session and after a session, making sure that our muscles are nice and warm before we start asking them to do too much, and then just trying to relieve maybe a little bit of tension, reduce a little bit of next day soreness by cooling down at the end of the session as well, you know, because if you've had them DOMs, you'll know straight away that muscle soreness that you get the next day from the gym, or 48 hours after the gym, you know, depending what you've done, sometimes it can just write your day off. Like, you know, sometimes you need to actually plan a rest day around DOMs and soreness. So again, the more we can reduce that by cooling down and stuff like that, obviously the more progress we can be making. Then we looked at hazards in a fitness environment, like I say, specific to sort of pieces of kit, how we can reduce those pieces of kit and make sure that, again, we're working safely and protecting everybody else that's in the environment as well as yourself. You know, there are other people there that we need to consider. And then we looked at just improving your own fitness and performance. You know, we were trying to that's where we looked into a little bit of self-reflection, you know, being able to look at yourself and say, okay, I feel like I'm really good at this. I feel like I'm not so good at this. I could be better at this. Or, you know, I would like to be better at this. And because I enjoy doing it, how or what areas of my own fitness do I need to improve to become better at this in general? You know, again, coming back to you know, sort of Michael Jordan in that famous off season where he decided he was sick of being pushed around and bullied on the court. He went and put a load of muscle on.
Yeah.
He worked on his conditioning. He worked on his strength. And, you know, the next year he was breaking records left, right, and centre, and he was untouchable. And that was probably around about the point that he started to, pretty early in his career, started to be regarded as the best of all time, you know, the GOAT. So,
yeah, man.
You know, just by him, how easy would it be if you're signed to a multi-million-dollar top league contract to just say to yourself, okay, I've made it. There's no room to improve. I don't need to improve. You know, whereas this guy went away and said, no, I want to be stronger. I want to be fitter. I want to jump higher. I want to last longer. I want to be able to take and have the fitness to hit and make crucial shots after 48 minutes, you know, in overtime 3 or something like that. You know, he went away and he absolutely revolutionized his own game and potentially the sport and what we expect, you know, just by going away and looking at where he didn't go away and work on his strengths. You know, he didn't go away and do more dunking. Do you know what I mean? He went away and he did a load more like, oh, I'm going to work on the areas that people are actually taking advantage of, you know, and getting the better of me at.
It's so weird when you see people who like in like football's the thing that comes to mind, but like you see players who have like an amazing season and then they'll just be crap like the rest of their career. Like Fernando Torres. I think when he was at Chelsea, he was so good, and then he just like literally like, you know, like he just went downhill, and then like after that he was just never, he was like an okay player. He never ever got back up to that kind of level, and like I think Cisse for Newcastle had like 1 or 2 seasons where he was like untouchable, and he was just like banging them in like left, right, and center, and then he just turned to like crap. And it's mad how that can happen, where like it's like they can have a season where just everything they touch goes in the net, and then it's just like nothing. It's just like
That ridiculous banana shot that he hit against Chelsea with the outside of his boot,
Oh
man, that
man.
lobbed over Petr. I remember it was like I was watching that, just watching that. Like, it was just like everything he hits this season is going to go in or what.
Yeah.
And then within 2 seasons, he was regarded as essentially a flop, and he'd
I
moved
know.
on. He'd moved on,
It's
and
insane.
it is. It's funny, like you said, it can come down to little things as well about, how are they training, how are they dieting,
Yeah,
what's the culture like. It's little things like that.
definitely.
Um, but I do feel like, certainly in terms of improving your performance, it does come from analyzing and working on your weaknesses, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Being able to sort of, as an individual or as a whole, say, right, this is where we need to work on. You know, I remember Manchester United won the league one season where they felt like they won every game 1-0. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was like, okay, last season we were winning some games 4-0, 5-0, but other games we were getting beat like 2-3. So what we need to do this season as a collective
Yeah.
is defend better, and we only need to score a fraction of the goals that we're scoring.
That's it,
It's
yeah.
like Bobby Robson said: if you score more goals than the opposite team, you've got a strong chance of winning. You know?
It's true, man. I mean, I think it's always been the way of like Italy's very like famous for that. I think the Italian national team, but even like Italian teams in general, they can play terrible 80 minutes and then score one goal and then they
Yeah,
win the game.
yeah,
They win 1-0 and it's like that's all you need is the goal really.
yeah. Job
Um,
done. Job done. Yeah, got me three
exactly.
points.
So yeah,
Oh
it's
man.
that's that, and I mean it's just like tactics and teamwork, I guess, make that as well. So
Well, that's it. Yeah, but it comes down from, like I say, a collective, and it can be applied to the individual as well.
mm,
Analyzing where they're struggling. Do you know what I mean? That's not looking and saying, okay, do you know what? We're really, really good at scoring goals. Let's try and beat Team 6-0 next season. It's
yeah,
like, well, no, they'd have been no better off. They being able to look and say, okay, I feel like I'm a little bit weaker at this. And coming back to fitness, I've seen it. I've mentioned it quite a lot in guys, people in general, mainly guys who want to lift a load of weight, and they do like 2 or 3 reps heavy, and their muscles could keep going, but they're not
yeah,
cardiovascularly fit enough, for their heart and their lungs to get the oxygen to the muscles for those muscles to work effectively. Those muscles can be they can be strong, but if they haven't got the oxygen, they're not going to do a thing. It's essentially trying to get the car to move with no petrol in. So if your body can't get the oxygen where it needs to be, those muscles can't do what they need to do. So instead of saying to that person, right, you need to put more weight on that bar and get them legs stronger, it's like, no, you need to come away. We need to do some conditioning work and make sure that your heart and lungs can keep up. And, within a couple of weeks, you're going to have another 50K on that bar. Just because you'll be maximizing your full potential, you're actually limiting yourself at the minute. You're bottlenecking your own abilities and your own capabilities just by sticking so religiously to train in this one aspect.
what one of my yeah, and I think it's down to your goals as well, right? Like one of my good friends, he last time I saw him, obviously I didn't get a chance to see obviously many of my friends during the pandemic, and so I saw him like last year in like February maybe, and he was huge. He looked pretty big, and he was doing a lot of weightlifting. He's a naturally quite athletic person, and he looked like really really big. And then I saw him like a couple of months ago maybe, and he'd slimmed right down, and he still looks quite lean, but he's slimmed right down. And he was saying obviously he's got like a minor heart issue. It's nothing too serious, but it can develop and get worse as he gets older.
Okay.
And he said, he was just being an idiot. He says that there was no real reason for him to lift like those kind of weights when he's got a condition, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's doing a lot of running now, and he's been doing like running half marathons and stuff like that, and just completely changed his body shape though, 100%.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? Because like your body is just like a product of your lifestyles and your habits, pretty much, And it was actually a point that I came across in my own training at one point, where I think I've mentioned before, when I started the gym, I was doing like a lot of strength training, thinking,
Yeah.
like lift big weights, I'll put a little bit of weight on. And after about a year, I actually went away and I did my PT qualification, and I learned the difference between strength training and actual hypertrophy, which is training for muscle size.
Yeah.
And I realized that they're two totally different things. So I changed my whole training approach to fit the goals that I was actually trying to work towards, not just sort of doing the thing that at that point it would have been easy to stick with strength training because I was getting pretty good at it. Do you know what I mean? I've always been like relatively strong for my size and for my weight. And it would have been all too easy to say, oh, well, I'm good at this now, I'll just stick at this. But it was like, no, okay, I want to do this. I want my body to look like this. So I need to do this instead, or I need to do some of this as well.
Yeah.
So again, it all comes down to a little bit of self-reflection and like I say, just a little bit of analysis, really.
Definitely. That's a really good point. We've got Wibbs in the chat said, he said, Arsenal 1-0 to the Arsenal. What Arsenal? Arsenal 1-0 to the Arsenal. He said, boring football but won titles. So that's it.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. Like Daniel mentioned, you watch Italian football, and that's all it is. Like park the bus and hope for a 1-0 win on the counter attack or something like that. Yeah. It's not the most entertaining thing, but you know what? They are out there to entertain, but they're also kind of not. They're out there to win.
Exactly.
So again, it comes down to the context specific, but when it comes to fitness, it's a really important skill and ability to be able to have to just say, okay, this is where I felt like I could do with improving a little bit,
Obviously, I'm a massive combat sports fan as well.
Yeah.
There's, comparison there would be Anthony Joshua versus Ruiz 1, where he came out like just trying to knock him out. He just thought, I'm just going to come out and just like spark this like fat guy out, and he ended up getting knocked out himself. And then
right.
Second one comes back, fights him again. Needs to be much more measured. He's a better boxer than him, physically a better boxer. So he needs to box him, and he did. He won the rematch, obviously, and that's it. He came out and he boxed and was a lot more measured. And we'd seen him do that before when he fought what's he called, Parker. He fought Parker and he fought like that because he knew Parker could have knocked him out, and that's it. And it's a case of taking a more measured approach. And it's like at the end of the day, everyone wants like the highlight reel finish, but it's not. Sometimes at the end of the day, you've got to win, and that's the ultimate goal. And you see that in UFC a lot all the time. A lot of wrestlers get a bad rep for like pinning someone down, not letting them move, but they're not advancing position enough. And it's like, yeah, that is boring sometimes, but if you're winning fights, you can't. It's you playing. It's the rules, isn't it? It's like so.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah, so that's a really good point, actually, buddy. Yeah. It's always going to be context specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
Totally. Which is of course over the last 12 weeks, hopefully we're realizing even more and more as the weeks go on how important context is. And it's exactly the same with our fitness. It's exactly why, what works for one person won't work for somebody else. It's why we call it personal training, because it needs to be individual to you. And of course, the person who knows you best is yourself. So if you pick up some of these fitness protocols and principles and stuff like that, which I'm sure you have by now, and I know you have by now, the planning phase becomes so much easier. And once you've done the planning phase of your fitness, all you've got to do is follow it, haven't you?
Exactly.
You've just got to turn up at that point.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes down to your plan, and that's where all of these topics and all of these skills come in. Just to planning and making things specific to your goals and what you actually are up against or need to be up against. Okay, buddy. So we've got one more. We've got a couple more slides to do, or we've got one more to do with the workbook. So if we just go to the next one, please, buddy. The Sport and Active Leisure Project. Wib Wilson makes an excellent point. Toon, the entertainers didn't win a single thing. Kevin Keegan play like one at the back and 9 up front. Yeah, they didn't win a thing.
Yeah.
To quote the man himself, I'd have loved it if we'd have beat them, but we did not, isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it? Timeless.
Love it if we beat them. It's like getting emotional.
Timeless. So aged like milk.
Yeah,
definitely. But that's exactly it. Where it's not all about going out there and playing to your strengths. You've got to cover your bets, and you've got to cover your weaknesses as well, for sure.
Definitely.
Okay, so the last sort of workbook, or the last unit that we worked our way through, that we sort of started and finished last week, was creating a unique fitness class. So you guys having a little bit of a think. It was what I sort of mentioned at the start of the session as well. We're talking about what health benefits would your class have. What do you have variations for each exercise? How well suited are you to accommodate someone who turns up who is a little bit overweight or has never trained before, or who has a bad back doing certain exercises? We need to plan all of this as well, and then going away and doing a little bit of research as well. What classes are out there, because it's so it does open your eyes. I've seen classes out there even just in the last couple of years that I never would have thought were going to come along. I've seen one that started recently. It's them baby bouncers that you get that sits in the doorway, that they'll sit in like pretty much like a swing, but they just bounce up and down. It's essentially like a class with almost like a Dodgems sort of roof above, and these everyone's in one of these harnesses, and it's on you're pretty much sat in one of these bouncers, and you've got the elastic to help. And it gives you it helps with plyometrics. It helps with sort of squat jumps, jumping lunges. Can you get people to do sprints running against the harness? Almost as though you'd see people doing it where they've maybe got the trainer holding the band back and they're trying to run against the band as fast as they can.
I've seen that, yeah.
You can do that without the band in these fitness classes, and it's something that on paper, if you'd have looked at, you'd probably giggle at it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I'm all for it. Sign me up for one of them.
Course, yeah, man.
And do you know what? I bet it's harder work than it looks as well. But it just goes to show you there's not really any limits on what we can do for fitness. Again, just think about how many people are you accommodating for? Have you got 10 stations set out? What might you do if 12 people turn up? I've had that before. That's something that you might need to consider. How long is the session going to last? Is it going to be 20 minutes and be quite intense? Is it going to be 40 minutes and you need to sort of not drag things out just for the sake of making it last longer, but do you need to give them longer rest time because they're working for longer? Can you make the sets a little bit longer and get more aerobic endurance rather than keeping them really short and working on sort of maximum output, that sort of thing? So thinking about the time frame, how long the class is going to last, who it's going to appeal to, like I say, what makes it unique, like I say, just thinking about all of those things, and that should now be just about the only thing we've still got left to do for this course is get them finalized and presented in whichever way we're going to do those. And then that was the last unit that we did. So like I say, as promised, we'll just spend a little bit of time, maybe 5-10 minutes, having a quick recap on some of the healthy eating side of things before we sort of wrap up for the day and call it. So if you don't mind going next slide, please, dude. Coming back to that healthy eating side of things, because like I say, there's so much information out there. Like I say, 1 year eggs are bad for you, watch out for your cholesterol, stay away from eggs. Then the next year it's like, oh, eggs are amazing, they're a good source of protein, you should be eating them every day. And it's like, well, do you know what, if research is always going to be changing, what's right and what's wrong for myself, Well, go on, bud.
One of the biggest ones that I knew, I think I mentioned it before, was how I grew up people telling me you got to eat breakfast, it's the most important meal of the day. And then now people say, well, actually, if you skip breakfast, that's actually part of intermittent fasting. So if you're not having anything to eat in the morning, you could say that's part of your intermittent fasting window. So it's actually good for you. And it's like, what? It's like, how can these two bits of information totally contradict each other?
Yes, I think saying that breakfast is the most important meal of the day is it's a psychological thing in getting especially kids to eat something first thing.
Yeah.
And it definitely, in the majority of people, can boost your performance throughout the morning. But like you say, intermittent fasting is a thing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you just think about someone mentioned this to me once upon a time, I can't even remember who now, but someone made the point of me. If you think about the word breakfast and what it actually is, you are breaking your fast from overnight.
True.
So if you don't eat till 2 o'clock in the afternoon the next day, that's breakfast because you're breaking your fast, really. So in a sense, breakfast is the most important meal of the day because that's going to kickstart your metabolism and get your body working and get you burning and sort of kick everything into gear. But at the same time, breakfast isn't necessarily time conditional.
Yeah.
You know, it's not time specific, which was a really interesting thing, because of course I think of breakfast of like get up and get a bowl of cereal. Like that's what I grew up with. That was breakfast for me as a kid. You get up, you have a bowl of cereal, you maybe watch a bit of SpongeBob or Scooby Doo, and then off you go for the day.
That's it.
Like mornings to be jealous of now I think about it, actually. You know, but at the same time, you know, I have seen, like I say, sort of intermittent fasting, fasted cardio in the morning. If you're trying to lose weight, and you're going to go to the gym and try and do some fasted cardio, breakfast isn't the most important meal of the day. You know, you need to not have breakfast, but then you're going to still have breakfast later on. It just might be at dinner time, if that makes sense. You know,
Exactly,
so it is breaking your fast is important because it gets your body going. Eating at a certain time of day necessarily isn't the most important thing in the world, and don't lose too much sleep over it, because another thing that I always sort of considered was, what about someone who works shifts?
True.
You know, should they still get up, should they still have breakfast at that time of day because everybody else is, or are they all right to have breakfast at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, because that's when they're getting up?
I was gonna say it's like tea for them, right? At breakfast.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so what is right for one isn't right for everybody else. So your own circumstances are gonna determine these things. You know, I've had clients flapping and panicking and losing sleep over what they should do for breakfast, when they should eat, just because they're on a different shift. I'm like, just still treat your waking hours as your waking hours, because you're still gonna do whatever you need to do in those hours. Do whatever you would be doing if you weren't on night shift, pretty much. You know what I mean? You're just doing it in the dark. So yeah, don't worry about that too much. They're your 24 hours. Don't worry too much about what other people are doing with their 24 hours, because their 24 hours guaranteed looks a whole lot different to yours. You know, so their lifestyle, their habits, their eating habits, and their behavior and their exercise is going to look totally different to yours, and it's just unreasonable to think that you can mirror it. You know, because you can't live the same lifestyle as somebody else if you're not living the same life as somebody else. Like, it's just impossible, you know. So the benefits of healthy eating anyway, because of course we all know about we should eat, our 5 pieces of fruit and veg a day, and we should all try and make this effort to get certain things in our diet as well, because there's a lot more to it than weight gain and weight loss, isn't there? You know, it's not just a calorie surplus or a sort of calorie gain. You know, there was one researcher or one scientist over in the States at one point who he only ate junk food, but he lived on like Twinkies and stuff like that. But he ate under his calorie amount for the day.
Yeah.
So he lost weight.
It's that there's like the whole like a thing in like fitness community, isn't it? It's like if it fits your macros, and it's like people work out how much the macronutrients they need or something for the day, and then they build around that. So I need this amount of calories, this amount of fat, this amount of protein. So then they work their way around that. So it's like they can build like a burger into their day for around their macros. So
do you know what? It is absolutely amazing. It's an amazing approach.
Yeah.
It's an amazing approach that I've used. And you do get good results from it as well, you know, when it comes to weight gain and weight loss. But of course, when it comes to feeling good, being optimal, all of that kind of thing, self-confidence, energy, it all comes from nutrients as well. You know, we need to make sure that we're getting good foods in there as well. You might lose weight eating nothing but junk food, but you're not going to feel good for it, and you're not going to last very long on that diet as well. You know, so of course we're getting more energy, a healthy heart that's more efficient as well, you know, a better mood, better disposition for the day, which goes a long way, you know, getting you through the other 23 hours of your day and not just the one that you're exercising. Better gut health, you know, so your stomach's feeling better when you're eating, after you've eaten, all of that sort of thing. Weight loss and weight gain in some rare senses, you know. Weight loss is just one of the many products we can hope to sort of gain or experience from healthy eating. You know, it's not the be all and end all. There is so much more to it. You know, sleeping better as well. Do you know what? Like, the amount of people that over the years, like, if they've got like a little bit of weight to lose, if I said, would you rather lose 2 pounds or would you rather get a solid 8 hours sleep on a night, then take your hand off for 8 hours solid sleep? They really would, you know, because of how much of an impact that has on the rest of your day.
Yeah.
You know, that is something that I'd always dig into with a client. How's you sleeping? How did you sleep last night? That sort of thing. Because that can actually make up a bigger portion of the picture than what, you know, the weight loss or the odd snack that they're having from time to time. That's not the first thing to fix.
Yeah.
The first thing to fix is that they're up 4, 5, 6 times throughout the night. That's what you've got to fix first. So again, it's not all entirely about weight loss and weight gain. It is about just feeling good day to day and thriving. You know, using your fitness to make the rest of your life more enjoyable. You know, because that's why I train and that's why a lot of people train. Yes, it's amazing to get to the point where you can leg press 200 kilograms. Absolutely amazing. It's nice, you know. At the same time, it's about the bigger picture and lasting longer and being healthier and being able to participate and more experience more life while we're here. That's the way I see it, at least.
No, I
You know,
agree.
and that is where you realize that that's where the idea behind sustainable change has got to come in, because it's the way that you're going to live your life, not just something that's going to help you get to a certain point with your body and then you can go back to doing what you were doing before, because there's just no way that your results are going to stick around if your habits don't, which is the way I've always sort of put it across to people. But of course, yeah, loads of benefits of healthy eating, and having those healthy eating habits. If we can just slide on to the last slide then, please, buddy. Thinking of a way to have healthier eating habits, you know, and just making sure that we're giving ourselves a fighting chance. You know, I've mentioned a couple of these already. Plenty of water, you know, drinking plenty of water every day, limiting the processed foods that we're taking in, and making sure that we're getting plenty of fruit and veg every day. Trying to avoid snacking between meals, especially if you're ending up with like a calorie surplus, or
Yeah.
you're then getting to your meals, which you've worked out your macros and it fits what you need, but then you're not full enough to eat it. You know, you end up skipping meals. Maybe you're the other way, and you maybe need to control your portion sizes. You know, I've actually advised clients to go away and buy smaller plates.
It's a really good one.
Or buy like a portion control plate, which will actually have like dividers on it. It'll say put your protein here, put your veg there, put your grains and your carbs here, and it'll just give you an idea what a balanced portion actually looks like a little bit more, you know, which links into the last one on that graph. Eating a varied diet, you know, make sure we're getting all the food groups in. You know, there's a theory behind sort of not tasting the rainbow, that's Skittles, but eating the rainbow, in the sense of just trying to get as many colours in your fruit and veg as you can. You know, get some squash in there, get some tomatoes, get like aubergine in there, whatever it might be. You know, this idea of, you know what, it's nice to, like, I can eat five pieces of fruit every day. If I eat the same 5 pieces of fruit, I'm going to be really, really loaded up on stuff that food is abundant in.
Yeah.
With potassium, for example, if I'm just eating bananas every day. But eventually, stuff that food isn't abundant in or sort of rich in, that's going to catch up with me, you know. If I was just eating like I say, a load of bananas, I'm going to get a load of potassium. Sooner or later though, I'm going to not have enough zinc in my system, enough iron in my system, you know, enough magnesium in my system. Those are the things that actually contribute to well-being, your immune system, you know, feeling well, your mood, and we need to make sure that we're getting the balance in our diets, not just in terms of weight gain and weight loss, and mixing up our carbs, fats, and proteins and balancing them properly as well. But we need to make sure that those micronutrients, like I say, the irons, the zinc, the magnesium, all of that sort of thing, we need to make sure that we're balancing those as well, which is why a diet that is sort of eating a lot of the same things all the time will work quite well for a short amount of time, but then sooner or later some deficiencies are going to start to catch up and we need to change things up a little bit as well, you know. So yeah, we do actually need to get a little bit of variety in there, change up what veg we're having, what fruit are we having, what food in general are we getting, you know, and just make sure that we're covering those bases. And that is where something like those trackers like a fitness, my fitness pal and stuff like that can come in, because not only does it track your carbs and your calories and stuff like that, it can actually help. It actually tracks those micronutrients as well. You know, saturated fat, like I say, zinc, iron, all of those sort of things. It lets you know how much of those you're getting, so you can say, okay, I've had a couple of days where I haven't had much zinc. I need to change up my fruit and veg tomorrow. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, Matt.
Okay, cool. So, um, plenty of bad habits around food. I've definitely mentioned a few of them over the course of the morning, and especially over the duration of the last 12 weeks. You know, we're talking about overeating, we're talking getting peer pressured into eating and that sort of thing. You know, you go to a wedding reception, and there's a buffet, and you know you can't count the calories that's in all the buffet food, and it's probably not the best quality food in the world. And you know, it's somebody's birthday, and they're going out for a meal, and they want you to have a bit of birthday cake. You know, don't get too sort of obsessive with it, because that's something that we do need to be conscious of, and we don't want our food habits limiting and impacting and restricting our lifestyle more than they need to, really. But at the same time, we need to be aware of things like I sort of mentioned earlier on, convincing yourself that you're going to start a diet next Monday, so you're just going to eat everything you want now, and then Monday comes and the diet doesn't start, so all you've really had is 5-6 days of eating junk. You know, to then maybe convince yourself, okay, I'll start next Monday, and then you have another week of doing the same thing. It'd be healthier to just be in the mindset of, oh, do you know what? I'm just not going to diet.
Yeah.
And then at least you're gonna moderate that a little bit more, as opposed to saying, oh, do you know what? All the damage now I'm going to make up for next week when I'm on it, and then next week comes around and you're not actually on it. You know, I've seen that done quite a lot.
I
You
think
know,
paired eating's a really bad one, right? Like a cup of tea, have a biscuit with it,
oh
obviously.
yes, yeah. Now again, there's absolutely no harm in the smaller things in life that you do enjoy. You know, I've mentioned to you before. If we go up to Newcastle to watch the Eagles play, half time comes, I'm already salivating, knowing I'm having a hot dog at half time. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
is just
man.
part of the experience. But if I was in a position where my diet couldn't allow that, or wouldn't allow that, or say I was in a position where I really did need to lose a certain amount of weight to go in for an operation or something like that, that would where I'd need to be thinking about of trying to think of, like, can I unpair those things? You know, can I discipline myself enough to go to the cinema without getting popcorn as well? You know, do I need to get popcorn, or can I take maybe something else in that's going to be a little bit better?
For sure.
Do you need food at all? Like you say, buddy, a biscuit and a cup of tea is no problem at all. Especially if you're fitting it in with if it fits your macro sort of approach. The problem is it's hard to stop after one biscuit, isn't it? You know, how often
True
can you
that.
do half a packet? You
Oh
know,
man, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I know that all too well.
Yeah, and then do you know what? Even if you're tracking food, you just say, "Oh, today's a write-off. I'll stop tracking. I'll get back on it tomorrow." And then whatever that healthy meal was for tea, maybe it goes out the window. And next thing you know, you start having a takeaway as well. So it's a
Yeah,
slippery slope as well.
got the palm in.
Before we do want to wrap up, that is the one that I do want to mention: a slippery slope and a black or white mentality. You know, this idea of you're on your wagon or you're off the wagon. It's a case of, okay, I've had a couple of biscuits for lunch. I'm off the wagon now, or I've caved in and I've had this packet of crisps. Now I'm just going to go full bore and I'm just going to have whatever I want for tea. I'm going to get the pizza in. I'm going to set about this 4-pack of tins that's in the
Chicken
fridge.
parma.
Yeah, you know, like you say, buddy. And before you know it, you've given yourself you've taken more steps back over than you actually needed to.
True.
You know, that first step back over that you took was maybe something necessary in terms of the psychological point of view of, okay, I need to give myself something before I can push on again. So that does has its place, you know, things like cheat days, cheat meals, like that sort of thing. At the same time, don't let a bad meal or a bad event turn into a bad day or a bad week, or even worse, a bad month, because the longer it goes on before you're back on the ball, you know, the more you're giving yourself work to do. There is no pause. You're either moving forwards or you're moving backwards. You're either chasing your goals or you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and the longer that you're not, the more work you're giving yourself next time, especially if you're one of these people, like the majority of us are, where you think to yourself, okay, I'm not doing the exercise, I'm not training, I'm not chasing any goals, I'm not going to worry about eating healthy at the minute either, as well. You know, you see it so often. And it's funny because the people that are exercising probably could get away with, you know, some of those naughtier foods, some of those slacker diets. Whereas it's the people that aren't training and exercising that are more likely to end up on those diets, because they're not engaged with what they're doing and they're seeing themselves as off the wagon, you know, whereas we need to see it as a sliding scale. You can be up here doing all of this, or you can be down here just doing this, but down here needs to be something, and it needs to be a bare minimum as well. You know, so yeah, we got to think about, just trying to stay on the ball. Don't let a bad experience or a bad day rub off and ruin the rest of the day. Your next chance to eat, or your next meal, or your next chance to train, is your opportunity, is your first opportunity to get back on course, isn't it? You know, so take that chance when it comes along, definitely. Okay, guys, right, that'll about wrap us up this morning then. So, of course, that'll do us for the course as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe how fast these last 12 weeks have gone over.
Flew up,
You
isn't
know,
it?
yeah, to say that what we were in February when it started, and
Wow.
the year was in its infancy, and now we've got a little bit of sunshine outside. So yeah, we've come a long way. Hopefully, it's been an interesting learning process for you as well. Like I say, as always, if you can just fill in any sort of surveys and stuff like that, I'm going to make sure that I send them across. When I link up each or when I send each sort of session over, I'll make sure the survey comes with them as well. But yeah, if you could just make sure to fill in today's, especially, because it's sort of like I say, end the course, and it gives us some important information that we can use on your paperwork. And of course, we'd like to know just your thoughts on the course in general. What do we do well? How have you found it? What have you enjoyed? And then of course, where we can be even better and suiting you guys even more, which is something that we're always sort of striving to do as well. So if we can just go, of course, we're on that last slide, no workbook to look at this week, of course. So the plan for now, emailing all 5 completed units over to me. My email address is there on the screen. It'll be in the description as well. Organising your one-to-one Zoom meetings to do any presentations that you might need to do, be it a health presentation, be it your own unique fitness class, and we'll get those done as well. And then other than that, congratulations, you're done. Absolutely awesome. Once we get those last few bits finished up, fully completed your course, we'll get it signed off, and we can work on getting certificates sorted and sent out to you guys as well. So absolutely awesome work. Well done. Stay tuned as well for more learning opportunities and courses coming up. We've got stuff announced for term 3 or planned in for term 3. So yeah, keep your sort of eyes peeled and keep your ears to the ground to just anything that's coming up in the future, especially if you have enjoyed this level 1, and there's a level 2 coming up that you can get jumped on as well. So again, if you see anything or if you want more information, either give me a shout or any of the guys in the office, to be fair, especially if it is to do with the digital side, give Lisa, give Daniel, give Hatham a shout, whatever. And yeah, take care of yourself, guys. I'll hopefully see you on courses in the future. Hopefully keep progressing and just keep adding more strings to that bow. Other than that, guys, stay safe, take care of yourself. Have you got anything to add, Daniel, before we shoot?
No, just the fitness video is in the description, as is the survey. So just have a little look at those guys if you want. And I think that's pretty much everything, dude.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel. Thanks for your help this morning. Cheers for jumping on board. Been a pleasure as always. Yeah, you guys stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll hopefully see you somewhere down the line. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Bye.